Hi, I'm Rosalie Marshall and I'm here with Mike Altendorf, who's the head of EMC's consulting division. He's here to discuss information overload. So, hi Mike.
Hello Rosalie.
Mike, from your experience dealing with customers, how many do you feel are suffering from the overload of information?
Yeah, I mean they do feel completely inundated by the amount of information that seems to be needed to be stored, managed and then used in applications all around their business. There's a huge thirst for reporting of information that has really stepped up a gear since the recession and the financial crisis, where we're seeing more Sarbanes-Oxley type rigor coming into information in Europe than has been previously seen.
Okay, and so in our panel discussion, we had a panel discussion this morning, and many people were talking about kind of when dealing with all this information that seems to be coming in many different channels and through different devices, etc. Is it a lack of tools that are available to people to manage this information that's the problem, or is it people's kind of lack of familiarity with the tools themselves?
Yeah, I think there's many different factors here. I think EMC commissioned IDC to do a report on how big the digital universe of information actually is, and they sort of benchmarked 2008. It came out at a staggering 487 billion gigabytes, which is too much to comprehend. I look at it with my kids and their iPods. There's 30 billion fully loaded iPod touches, is about the size of this information universe we're dealing with. So the sheer scale is something that the tools have not been able to cope with, and that's why you've seen the rise of metadata management. That's going to be absolutely critical going forward, is the way that you look after the data, or the data about the data, shall we say. So in other words, where's the data stored, what's the data about, so you can get one view of a customer's record and not necessarily store it multiple times, but have one view of it and know where it is, and then be able to access it from different applications. So you're going to see a huge increase in metadata management software. The other side is around the data deduplication and security. So it's one of the reasons EMC bought Data Domain, was they wanted to have the best world-class data deduplication, backup, restore, archive, so that the resilience of your data is going to be there. Then you overlay it with the metadata management side, and then you've got RSA for the security, because security of data is paramount. There's been so much leakage of data through the internet, through fraud. There's recent cases of a couple of internet trading sites where they made mistakes and sent emails of personal data to the wrong customers and all sorts of things over the last couple of weeks. Always increases over the Christmas period. And then you've had people losing data on laptops and trains. So, security, management of data, and knowing the security of data are absolutely critical going forward. And then in terms of tools, I think business intelligence tools and search tools are going to be critical going forward. So collaboration, analytics, and how you visualize data we're really seeing real drivers that customers want to get on top of.
Okay, you've touched on a number of key issues that have been discussed this morning again in our information overload summit. The security aspect is a big factor. I mean, how much? Because the big question is how much, obviously, is IT responsible for security, and how much is it practices for the organisation, the business users to put in place, and how can IT put in place security practices without bogging down the business user too much, and so they can still access the data as quickly as they need to, but without being restricted.
Yes, I understand. I mean, what you're seeing now is a lot of digital tokenization of data. So that means that data can have security around it, which is not actually a barrier to entry for the user in terms of trying to remember passwords and all this sort of thing. It goes on in terms of roles in the company and access levels and different types of applications and what's allowed to be seen. This is a whole new area of coming out, and it's all this digital tokenization will be key. The rest of it then is really security is a company policy. IT can protect data and put barriers in place, but then really it's down to individuals and company processes and procedures to make sure that they keep their data secure. Just the same way as they keep their buildings secure.
Right, okay. And another issue you touched on was deduplication and collaboration tools, and both of those kind of come together in the fact that it gives users clean access to data and cuts down the amount of data. Well, so collaboration tools can cut down the amount of data being stored in organisations if people collaborate and use just one version.
Yes, and absolutely. I mean, EMC Consulting, we sort of pioneered three areas here. to do collaboration effectively, you need the metadata management or master data management, which we talked about earlier, and you also need good search technology. And I think the first real knowledge management tool that can access these vast reservoirs of information and data now and work effectively is search. And we're seeing huge interest in implementing products like the FAST technology and autonomy, particularly the two big search engines that we're seeing used in corporates today. Once you've got better metadata around that data, the search engines work effectively, and that then drives collaboration. So, EMC Consulting is one of the, world leaders really in getting SharePoint to work effectively with Microsoft in their big accounts. And although it's not the greatest tool in the world, it's easier to implement. The end user, the business customer, seems to like using it, and therefore you can set up a collaboration space very, very quickly. So project reporting, management reporting, sharing information, and also the biggest one is a who's who, a more intelligent who's who within a corporate of who's got knowledge, who's worked on certain projects. They're massively important, and combine that with search. It's a very, very comprehensive tool to sort of cope with this information overload.
Okay, so many organisations are using a lot of these technologies already, the search and the deduplication, etc. But how far would you say all organisations are as a whole in coming to this clear set of data and using management tools properly?
I still think it's very early days. I do. I think there's an awful lot of SharePoint type portals in most corporates that I visit around Europe, but they're not really implemented and being used effectively. They're really storing data, sharing files, doing some project collaboration. The next level people need to get to, and they're starting to see, is implementation of search, better understanding of the information layer underneath search with this master data management and metadata management, and then the key area then is then linking that into your management information systems.
Do you think if banks had been following this advice a couple of years ago properly, if they had been using these management tools, etc., as you say, then the financial crisis might not have happened? Or do you think?
To say it wouldn't have happened is probably would be. Would not be the case, because there was a huge amount of greed and and a whole explosion in people just trying to lend money to anybody who was walking along the street. So it went a bit crazy. However, I do think it showed up huge areas around management information problems within banks. Certainly their risk and compliance departments were overloaded by the amount of transactions coming through, and also did not have the tools to spot the potential issues of these downstream. So as a single transaction, it looked fine, but group them together as multiple transactions and you had a problem. And that's where search will be a huge benefit going forward, as well as the more advanced business intelligence sort of applications that we're now putting into the bank, so that they can have a better view of their risk profiles across different products, different geographies, different traders.
Okay, Mike, and bringing it back to our polls again this morning. So when we polled our readers, most readers said that it was a mix of everything that was really causing them to feel overloaded, which isn't a surprise. So a mix of social networks, faster web and network connections, and all these smartphones, and just being on the move the whole time with different devices. But most of the readers actually said that it was the social networks, and I was just really wondering kind of what your view was on this.
I think social networks is a fantastic tool for business, and a lot of chief execs, when I'm talking to them about social networks, seem rather confused about that. They see it's something mostly their children are using, some of their employees are using, and they see their brand either being ignited as being fantastic, or completely disintegrated by being pilloried in the social networks. The truth is one is it's a great marketing tool, but don't think you can just stick very obvious marketing pages up there, because you will get absolutely annihilated. But it's a great way for customer feedback, understanding how people appreciate your brand and your products and services, and really interacting with your customers, and great research. Internally though, it's a fantastic collaboration tool. At EMC Consulting, we've pioneered using social networks as opposed to email as a way of collaborating on reporting on projects, doing project reviews, and doing business requirements gathering with a business department, and then posting back feedback and analysis. And we found it cuts down email traffic, it gets quicker interactions, and creates much more of a buzz, and it makes a really feel-good factor for your company. Okay. So if I was out there, I think social networks is definitely something to look at for an R&D project, even in these tough times. But if you think about it, the amount of digital information you're storing yourself at home now, your photos and your music and films, it's only going to grow and grow and grow. It's set to grow. This digital universe of about 487 billion gigabytes is set to grow 5-fold in the next 4 years. So it's pretty scary to think about it. So getting to grips with that management is going to be key.
Difficult. And finally, the trends in information management that you're seeing, we've discussed this throughout the interview, but if you could name the 3 kind of top trends you see and kind of areas that your own customers are prioritising.
Yeah, sure. I think the key one we're seeing is much more interest, we haven't mentioned before, in data visualisation. So it's the next generation of management information. Those guys who've got good business intelligence applications are now saying, okay, how can I visualize this in a more effective way? And we've been looking at using Xbox gaming technologies to represent it in 3D. We're using all the latest graphics technologies, the Microsoft Deep Zoom and Silverlight and the Adobe Flex technology to really bring management information to life, not just a spreadsheet tool. The search I mentioned earlier, absolutely key. If I was thinking about doing anything, first of all, I'd look at implementing search as a great tool for my users to collaborate and find their information. And the third one is then a bit more in the plumbing side we talked about, which is, getting this master data management, this understanding the data about the data, really investing in that because it will pay dividends later on and really try and contain your information overload from exploding.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks very much, Mike, for joining us.
That's good. Thanks.